Your great-grandparents survived summers that would kill most people today, not because they were tougher, not because they had more willpower. They survived because they understood something we have completely forgotten, that the human body is not an engine that needs to be cooled from the outside. It is a system, and if you get the system wrong, no amount of ice or machines will save you. I am visiting an Amish settlement in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and I have spent the last 3 summers learning from families who have zero electricity, zero air conditioning, and who work through every single July and August that comes without complaint, without exhaustion that breaks them, without the kind of heat illness that sends modern people to emergency rooms. And what I have discovered is not 10 tricks. It is not a list of hacks. It is a completely different way of understanding what your body actually needs when the temperature climbs. Most survival content tells you the same things. Wear light colors, drink water, stay in the shade. And yes, those things matter. But they are missing the fundamental principle that makes the difference between a person who merely survives the heat and a person who thrives in it. The principle is this: heat sickness does not come from being hot. Let me say that again because it is the opposite of what you have been told. Heat sickness does not come from being hot. Heat sickness comes from your body losing its ability to regulate itself. It comes from your system breaking down, and the Amish know exactly how to keep that system working. Here is what nobody talks about, and this is the center of everything. Your body wants to find balance. It does not want to be cold. It does not want to stay hot. It wants equilibrium. And when you fight against that drive for equilibrium, when you jump from an air-conditioned room into the heat, when you use technology to force your body into an unnatural cold, you exhaust your system. You burn out your ability to regulate. That is why people who live in cooled houses suffer more in the heat than people who live in the heat all the time. It is not that Amish bodies are different. It is that Amish bodies have not been trained to panic at a temperature shift. The first secret has nothing to do with cooling at all. It has to do with preparation. 3 months before summer arrives, right at the end of spring, Amish families deliberately begin something most of us would call insane. They stop using cool water for everything. They switch to room temperature water for washing, for drinking, for bathing. They do this gradually, and by the time July hits, their bodies have already adapted. They have acclimated. Their sweat response is already calibrated. Their cardiovascular system is already trained. When the heat arrives, their bodies recognize it as normal. This is not something they do because they lack electricity. This is something they do because they understand that if you let your body grow dependent on artificial cold, the actual heat will destroy you. Modern people do the exact opposite. We spend 8 months living in air conditioning that we set to 68 degrees. Then summer hits, and we immediately jump into 30-degree temperature shifts several times a day. We go from the office to the car to the store to the gym. We train our bodies to expect that unnatural cold, and then we wonder why we collapse the moment the power fails or we are stuck outside. Your Amish neighbor does not have that weakness. His body has spent the entire spring getting ready. The second principle is almost as misunderstood. It is about food. Most modern people think that in the heat, you should eat light, maybe a salad, maybe some fruit, maybe skip meals because food feels heavy. This is backwards. The Amish eat more in the summer, not less. But they change what they eat. They eat foods that require your body to expend minimal digestive energy. They eat cold soups made from vegetables that have been growing in their gardens since spring. They eat bread. They eat dairy products. They eat these things at specific times, not whenever hunger strikes. And here is the part that nobody gets. They digest more slowly in the summer because they have trained their bodies to move slower, to work at a different pace. Your metabolism is not a fixed rate. It is not unchangeable. It speeds up and slows down based on signals from your environment and your habits. The Amish slow theirs down deliberately. They wake early, before the heat peaks. They do their heaviest work in the cool hours of the morning. They eat a substantial breakfast and a lighter evening meal. They rest during the peak heat, not because they are lazy, but because they understand that fighting against your body's natural drive to rest during extreme heat is exhausting, so they do not fight it. This is where most survival advice fails completely. It treats the body like a machine that should perform the same no matter what the conditions are. Work hard all day, they say. Push through the heat, they say. This is how people die, not because they were not tough enough, but because they refuse to listen to their bodies telling them that survival in extreme heat requires a different rhythm entirely. The Amish rhythm is built on something ancient, something pre-industrial, something that your great-grandparents knew but that modern culture has completely erased. The third principle is hydration, but not the way you have been told. Most modern advice says drink as much water as possible. Carry water everywhere. Monitor your urine color. Drink even when you are not thirsty. This produces a false sense of security, and it can actually work against you. The Amish drink water deliberately. They drink at meals. They drink when they are genuinely thirsty, but they do not override their body's thirst mechanism. They trust it, because their bodies, not chemically flooded with electricity-made ice water all the time, still have accurate thirst signals. They can feel when they need water. They do not have to check a checklist or follow a formula. And when they drink, they do it in ways that support their body's actual need. They do not drink ice water during the heat of the day. They drink water that is room temperature or slightly cool. Why? Because a massive cold liquid shock to your stomach actually triggers your body's heat production systems. It makes you feel cold for a moment, which makes your body panic slightly and start producing heat to compensate. You end up hotter than you started, whereas water that is merely cool allows your body to absorb it without shock. Your system accepts it as part of the environment instead of fighting it. The fourth principle concerns clothing, and this is where most modern people get it completely wrong. They think that in heat, you wear less. Tank tops, shorts, bare skin. The Amish wear more. They wear long sleeves. They wear hats. They cover their skin. But not because they are uncomfortable, or because they like being hot. They do it for a specific physiological reason. Exposed skin loses water very fast. When that water evaporates, yes, you cool down for a moment, but you are also rapidly dehydrating. You are burning through your water reserves at a dangerous rate. And when you cover your skin with the right fabric, loose, light-colored, made from natural fibers like cotton or linen, that fabric acts as a barrier. It prevents your body from losing water so rapidly. The fabric warms slightly, creating a microclimate that is only a few degrees hotter than your skin. Your sweat can work efficiently in that microclimate, and you lose water at a sustainable rate instead of flooding your system into dehydration. Most people think that long sleeves in summer are crazy. They think that exposing skin is cooling, but what they are actually doing is turning their body into a water loss system. Within hours of exposure, you are dehydrated, and dehydration makes you more susceptible to heat illness. It makes your blood thicker. It makes your heart work harder. It makes your mental sharpness decline. An Amish farmer in full-sleeve linen and a hat is losing water at maybe 60% of the rate that a modern person in a tank top is losing it. At the end of an 8-hour workday, the Amish farmer has accomplished more physical work and feels better than the person who started with exposed skin. This is practical knowledge that kept your ancestors alive for thousands of years. It is not theory. It is not advice from someone with a degree. It is the accumulated result of millions of people learning what works and what kills you, over and over, across centuries. And somewhere in the last 70 years, we decided that we knew better. We decided that technology could override biology. We decided that we could live against our body's actual needs, and that machines would rescue us when it went wrong. And now, when those machines fail, most of us have no idea how to survive something that human beings survived for their entire history without any technology at all. The Amish are not superhuman. They are not built differently. They are simply operating according to a system that works, a system that aligns with what your body actually needs, instead of fighting against it. And the shocking part, the part that should make you think, is that this system is available to you right now. You do not have to wait for a power failure. You do not have to get to some survival scenario. You can start learning this today. You can begin acclimating your body. You can start eating according to the season. You can begin shifting your schedule to match the actual movement of the sun instead of fighting it with electricity. You can start wearing clothes that work with your body instead of against it. And when you do, when you actually make these shifts, something remarkable happens. The heat stops being an enemy. It becomes just another part of the year, just another rhythm that you move through. And you remember something your great-grandparents knew very well, that human beings survived and thrived in temperatures far more extreme than anything you will ever face. Not through suffering, not through toughness, but through wisdom. This journal you are looking at belongs to someone who lived through the 1930s. No electricity, no running water for most of the year, no grocery stores within 20 miles. And yet the entries show no panic, no desperation, just careful notes about what worked and what did not. Because our ancestors did not stumble into survival. They studied it, they wrote it down, they passed it forward. And here is what most people do not understand. The knowledge inside these pages is not theoretical. It is not about end-time scenarios or doomsday fantasies. It is about how to live well on less. It is about how to work with your environment instead of demanding that your environment bend to you. I want to take you through something the plain communities have always understood, the seasonal rhythm of survival. Not just heat and cold, not just food preservation and storage, but the deep knowledge that every season brings different challenges and different solutions. And every solution has already been discovered. Spring is the season of water. Before modern plumbing, spring meant something very specific. It meant running water. It meant opportunity. When the snow melts and the rains come, every household had to be ready. Because water that was available in spring might not be available in July or August. So they built. They built cisterns, underground tanks, elevated barrels, systems that would catch water when it fell and hold it through the dry months. Some of these systems are still standing, still working, still providing water to households that never paid a water bill in their lives. Now, I want to show you something that changes everything about how you think about water storage. Before plastic tanks existed, before we had the luxury of just buying a container, people had to make water storage from materials they had. And the results were actually better than what we use now. Clay vessels stay cooler than plastic. The slight porosity means evaporation happens on the surface, and that evaporation cools the water inside. In hot climates, a large clay jar filled with water can be 5 to 10 degrees cooler than the surrounding air. No electricity, no mechanical cooling, just physics and material knowledge. This is why the Amish still use ceramic crocks and clay jars in their kitchens. This is not tradition for tradition's sake. This is engineering disguised as simplicity. Summer moves into the season of preservation. By late spring, the plain communities are not just collecting water. They are preparing to preserve food. Because summer brings abundance. Summer brings gardens at their peak. Summer brings hunting season and fishing season. Summer means you have more than you can eat. And here is where most modern people get it wrong. They think preservation is about chemistry, about pH levels and canning times and sterilization temperatures. Those things matter. But before the science was written down, preservation worked because people understood something simpler, that certain methods work because they create conditions where spoilage cannot happen. Salt does not preserve food because of complex chemistry, though the chemistry is real. Salt preserves food because it removes water, and without water, bacteria cannot grow. That is the whole principle. Remove water, and the food lasts. That knowledge is so old and so proven that it predates written language. Smoke does the same thing, just differently. Smoke creates two conditions that stop spoilage. First, it removes moisture. Second, it creates compounds that bacteria cannot tolerate. Smoke also flavors the food. It changes the taste in ways that make the food more interesting, more complex, more worth eating. My grandfather could preserve a pig in August and eat from it through the following June. Not just survive on it, actually eat well from it. Smoked hams, smoked shoulders, smoked sausage, everything tasted good. Nothing spoiled. One animal, one season, one simple structure. The smokehouse. This is the knowledge that disappeared when refrigerators arrived. And we act like we invented something better. But we just invented something different. We traded knowledge for convenience. And now, if the convenience breaks down, we are helpless. Fermentation is the preservation method that almost nobody understands anymore, and it is perhaps the most powerful. Fermentation does not just preserve food, it transforms it. Bacteria break down the vegetables and create something entirely new. Something that lasts longer than salt can preserve it. Something that actually becomes healthier the older it gets. A jar of fermented cabbage from last year tastes better than cabbage from 6 months ago. The Amish make fermented vegetables and fermented fruits and fermented grains. They do it the same way their grandparents did. And the method takes almost nothing. Salt, vegetables, a container, time. Fall is the season where everything comes together. The harvest is at its peak. The days are cooling. The evenings are long enough to work indoors. and this is when the plain communities do their heaviest preservation work. Root cellars are dug or built in autumn. This is where most of the harvest actually lives. Not canned, not dried, not salted, just stored, in conditions that the earth itself provides. A proper root cellar maintains a temperature between 32 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. No electricity, no refrigeration, just the earth's own insulation, and the knowledge of how to use it. The plain communities know which vegetables store which way. Potatoes do well in cool, dark, humid conditions. Apples need cold and dryness and darkness. Onions need dryness above all else. Carrots can be packed in sand. Beets can be packed in sawdust. Every vegetable has its preference, and knowing these preferences means the difference between food that lasts until spring and food that rots in January. Winter is the season where all the preservation work pays off. It is the season where you eat what you stored. And it is the season where the plain communities demonstrate something that has almost vanished from modern life: contentment with what is already there. There is no shopping trip in January, no emergency run to the store because they ran out of tomatoes or forgot to buy apples. The food is already there. It was preserved in summer and fall. It was stored in autumn. And now it simply exists on the pantry shelf, waiting to be eaten. And this is when something interesting happens. The plain communities eat better in winter than most modern people eat any time of year. Not because they have access to more, because they have access to better. Because the food they eat is food they grew and preserved themselves. It is food they understand completely. It is food with no additives, no preservatives, no industrial processing. The temperature outside might be freezing, but inside there is warmth and food and family gathered together, and the work to get there was done months before. Now I want to move to something that the plain communities understand that the rest of us have nearly forgotten: the relationship between your work schedule and the food you eat. Modern life has divorced us from the natural rhythm of work and rest. We work by artificial light. We sleep by artificial schedules. We eat according to what is convenient, not according to what the season provides. And our bodies rebel against this. The plain communities have not abandoned this rhythm. They wake when the sun rises. They work through the daylight hours. They rest when the sun sets. And because their food comes from the land they work, they eat seasonally without thinking about it. In spring, the food is light. Fresh greens, new vegetables, broths made from bones. The body naturally wants less in the season when the work is lighter, the work of planting and preparation. In summer, the food is abundant, but the eating is still light during the day, because the work is heavy and demanding. The heaviest meal comes in early evening as the work winds down, not late at night when sleep should be coming. In fall, the food is preparation-focused: hearty vegetables, preserved foods. The eating is heavier because the work of preservation is exhausting and requires fuel. The body knows this is the time to add reserves. In winter, the eating is sustained and stable. The food comes from storage. The work is lighter. Maintenance work, indoor work, skilled work that does not demand heavy physical labor. The meals are drawn from what was preserved. Variety comes from knowing how to prepare the same ingredients different ways, not from accessing different ingredients. And this, right here, is something that has completely disappeared from modern nutrition science. The idea that what you should eat depends on what the season is. The idea that your body is designed to eat differently at different times of year. Modern nutritionists want to tell you that you should eat the same balanced diet all year long. But that is not how your body actually works. In spring, your body wants to cleanse. Light foods, green vegetables, broths. This is not modern detox nonsense. This is your digestive system coming alive after a winter of heavier storage foods. Your body is literally asking for what the season provides. In summer, your body wants less, not because of calories, but because the work is heavier and eating too much too late disrupts sleep. Lighter meals throughout the day, frequent eating, hydration. This matches exactly what the plain communities do without thinking about it. In fall, your body wants reserves, more food, richer food, fats and complex carbohydrates. Your body knows winter is coming. This is not about overeating. This is about actually listening to what your body is telling you. And the plain communities, eating seasonally, are naturally eating exactly what your body needs. In winter, your body wants stability and warmth. The same foods, prepared in ways that are warming and satisfying. The eating is consistent because the work is consistent. The body settles into a rhythm that is sustainable for months. Now, before we go further, I want to give you one more principle that ties all of this together. The plain communities are not living on less through deprivation. They are living on less because they have eliminated waste. A modern household throws away approximately 1/3 of the food it purchases. 1/3, completely wasted. The plain communities waste almost nothing. Not because they are poor, but because they have knowledge. Knowledge of how to use everything. That knowledge is not complicated. It is just different from what we learned. You buy a chicken in the store. You take the breast and thighs and forget about the rest. An Amish farmer kills a chicken and uses every single part. The meat goes to the table. The bones go to stock. The offal goes to feed or compost. The feathers go to pillows or insulation. Nothing is wasted because there is no waste. This is the knowledge that kept families fed through seasons of scarcity and made seasons of abundance possible. This is what survives when you stop thinking of food as a product and start thinking of it as a system. When January comes and the snow piles high against the barn, that family does not worry. They do not go to a store. They do not depend on a truck delivering food from somewhere 500 miles away. They walk to that cellar, they walk past those shelves, and they choose what they will eat tonight. That power, the power to feed yourself and your household through your own work and knowledge, that is not a luxury, that is not a hobby, that is freedom. And here is what most people miss when they look at preservation as a lost skill. They think it is just about keeping food from going bad. They think it is a technical problem that needs a technical solution. But it is so much more than that. It is about independence. It is about knowing that no supply chain disruption, no economic shock, no grid failure changes the fact that your family will eat well. The Amish families I have known do not preserve food because they are trying to make a point about the modern world. They preserve food because it is what you do. It is what your mother did and what her mother did before her. It is not quaint. It is not performance. It is simply the way life works when you take responsibility for your own survival. And that brings me to something important. When you learn these techniques, you are not just acquiring skills. You are joining a conversation that stretches back centuries. You are learning the language that your great-grandparents spoke. You are reconnecting with a part of human knowledge that almost disappeared. I have watched young people from plain communities learn these skills the way their ancestors did, not from videos or books first, but from standing beside someone who knows and watching them work. The knowledge enters through the eyes and the hands before it ever reaches the mind. That is a different kind of learning. It is deeper, it sticks. But here is the truth that brings me to close this. You do not need to be Amish to learn these methods. You do not need to live off-grid or own 100 acres. You can start exactly where you are. You can start with one jar, one batch of preserved food, one season of keeping what you grew or what you bought and making sure nothing wasted. Start there. Pick one preservation method that calls to you. Fermentation, perhaps, or salt curing, or simple water bath canning. Do not try to do everything at once. That is how people quit. Pick one, learn it thoroughly, teach yourself to do it well. Then in the next season, add another skill. This is how you rebuild knowledge that was nearly lost. Not all at once, but layer by layer. Season by season, year by year, and then one day, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10, you will realize that you have become someone who can feed themselves and their family through their own hands and their own knowledge. That day will come, and it will surprise you how much it changes everything. The techniques I have shown you today are still alive. They are not museum pieces. They are not curiosities. They are living knowledge, practiced every day in communities that have chosen to keep them. And that knowledge is available to you. It costs nothing but your attention and your willingness to learn. If you want to go deeper into these skills, I have put together a complete preservation guide that covers seasonal planning, step-by-step instructions for 8 major preservation methods, troubleshooting advice for when things go wrong, and a resource list of books that have shaped the way I approach this knowledge. You can find that at the link in the description below. But whether you download that guide or not, whether you follow along with me further or find your own teachers, I want you to know this. The knowledge you need to preserve food, to store it safely, to make it last through seasons of scarcity, that knowledge is inside you already. Your ancestors knew it. They passed it forward through their lives and through the blood that runs in your veins. You do not need to find it somewhere else. You need to remember it. You need to practice it until your hands know the work and your mind stops being afraid of it. That is where real security lives. Not in the grid, not in the supply chain, not in someone else's promises. Security lives in your hands. Security lives in the knowledge you carry. Security lives in the food you have preserved with your own effort. Thank you for watching Forgotten Roots Survival. If this knowledge resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new video on lost survival skills, homesteading wisdom, and the forgotten techniques that kept our ancestors alive. Hit the like button to let me know these skills matter to you, and turn on the notification bell so you are the first to see when we release a new episode. The old ways are still here, waiting for you to reclaim them. I will see you in the next one. End of Part 3. Script complete.